Hello, and thank you for being here. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch this video. If you decide to subscribe to the channel, just know it would genuinely mean a lot. Your support doesn't go unnoticed, so let's dive right into it. I'm Vincent. There's no easy way to explain the betrayal that comes when someone you trust turns out to be living a double life. It shakes your foundation, makes you question everything you thought was real. That particular night, my fiancée told me she was going out to catch up with her girlfriends. I had no reason to suspect anything. While I sat at home, thinking of her, imagining her laughing and sipping cocktails with people I assumed I knew, she was somewhere else entirely, wrapped in someone else's attention. I wouldn't have uncovered the truth if it hadn't been for a misstep. One of her friends slipped, just slightly, but it was enough to reveal everything. When Kimberly finally walked through the door just hours later, she was completely unaware that her secret had been blown wide open and that the moment of reckoning was near. The first time I saw Kimberly was at a professional conference. I hadn't gone there expecting romance, but from the first few minutes of conversation, something about her stuck. She carried herself with a quiet confidence. No show, no ego, just presence. I don't recall the exact duration of our chat, but I remember thinking, I really hope I see her again. Before the night wrapped up, I asked for her number. She gave it without pause. What followed was seamless. Texts turned into long conversations. Conversations turned into connection. And before I knew it, I realized something uncommon was unfolding. Kimberly wasn't just ambitious. She was wired like me, focused, intentional. She wanted a life that mattered, not just a life that looked good on paper. That mutual hunger bound us more quickly than I expected. Sure, she was stunning, but it was her determination, her intellect, her unwavering energy. That's what captured me. Still, I noticed early on that she didn't like talking about her past, especially when I brought up the obvious, whether there had been someone before me. It wasn't an intrusive question, just one I thought was reasonable, given how much time we were spending together. But her answer was vague, no clarity, no firm details. I remember feeling unsettled by it, but I didn't press. One evening, after we'd been seeing each other for a few months, we were out sharing drinks and getting deeper in conversation. She casually mentioned she'd recently gotten out of what she called a situationship. She claimed it had ended before we met. Naturally, I was curious. Was it serious? How long had it gone on? But every time I tried to dig deeper, she subtly redirected the conversation. She didn't shut me down. She was too clever for that. She simply steered the focus back to me. Smooth, almost imperceptible. I let it go. At the time, her saying she was single felt like enough. I took it at face value, and that, looking back, was the start of everything unraveling. Her evasiveness wasn't isolated, it was recurring. But I was too committed to pull back. I kept moving forward, thinking love would smooth over whatever gaps remained. Soon after, we made it official. The beginning was everything I could have wanted. Kimberly was invested, thoughtful, consistent. She encouraged my goals, asked the right questions, and introduced me to people who could help me grow. I did the same for her. It wasn't about keeping score, it was a genuine partnership. By the end of our first year, we were fully integrated. I'd met her family, she'd met mine, our friends overlapped. We weren't just dating, we were building something real. To everyone else, we looked solid, and for a long time I believed we were. That image of perfection helped me ignore the blind spots, the missing pieces of her backstory, the open questions that were never quite answered. I told myself it didn't matter. She was here, with me. That was enough. But as our third year approached, things shifted. Our conversations felt more like updates than connection. We used to dream out loud, talking about travel, future plans, inside jokes. Now, it was all logistics, schedules, work. That quiet disconnection scared me more than any fight would have. We weren't arguing, we weren't miserable, but the light between us was dimming. I missed the version of us that had once felt so alive. We didn't talk about the space growing between us. It just expanded. Still, I was holding on. I wanted something lasting. I was ready to move forward. I wasn't sure she was. She still told me she loved me, but the words felt rehearsed, hollow. So, I invited her to spend the weekend with me. She agreed right away. That Friday night, she arrived like always, smiling, carrying a bottle of wine and her overnight bag. We cooked together. She vented about her job. I listened, even though I'd heard most of it before. I didn't interrupt. I just wanted to be there. Later, lying next to her in bed while she absent-mindedly scrolled through her phone, I asked her something that had been weighing on me. Do you still feel the same way about us? About me? She looked up, a little surprised. Then she smiled, kissed me, and said, Of course I do. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. No one else compares. She even called me the old nicknames I hadn't heard in months. It caught me off guard. In the best way. I felt a wave of relief. For the first time in a while, I believed her. I let myself believe her. That night I made my decision. I was going to propose. I could see a future with her. I wanted it. It felt right. The next morning I reached out to a few of her closest friends and shared the plan. I told them I was proposing that evening and asked if they'd help make it unforgettable. They were thrilled, eager to help, full of ideas. Everything was set. That night, I brought her to her favorite restaurant, the one she always said made her feel like royalty. I told her to dress up earlier that day. Nothing unusual. She wore a soft blue dress I'd never seen before. She looked incredible. Dinner was light and easy. We talked casually, but inside I was on edge, watching the clock, counting the moments. After the meal, I walked her out to a nearby garden path just beside the building. Her friends were already hidden, waiting for the cue. Once I nodded, they emerged, phones out, beaming with excitement. Kimberly turned, clearly confused. By the time she turned back around, I was already on one knee. I took out the ring and told her everything I'd been holding back, that I loved her, that I wanted a lifetime with her, that this was only the beginning. She broke down in tears, repeating yes through the emotion. Her friends clapped and filmed from every angle. It felt like the start of something perfect. In the days that followed, reality resumed. Work was demanding, mine in tech, hers in marketing. Managing it all from separate apartments became exhausting. So we made a choice. She'd move in. It made sense. I loved waking up beside her. Living together only deepened our bond. We shared more laughs, inside jokes, even petty disagreements, little things that made us feel real. I believed we were exactly where we were supposed to be. But then things started shifting. Kimberly began getting home later than usual. She blamed it on work, tight deadlines, client dinners. I didn't want to be suspicious. I wanted to trust her. But deep down, something felt off. One evening, as she walked in and kicked off her heels, I asked her where she'd been. She said she'd been out with friends after work, just blowing off steam. She apologized for not mentioning it earlier, said it slipped her mind. But something in her tone, or maybe just in me, couldn't settle. That was the moment everything began to come apart. I'll be honest, I took her at her word without hesitation. Between the whirlwind of moving, the stress piling up from wedding planning, and our jam-packed schedules, I assumed things were just getting a little tangled. So I let it pass. I didn't push for answers. I made a conscious decision to trust the woman I was about to marry. What else could I do, being only months away from standing at the altar? But there was something else, something subtle that began to eat away at me quietly. Her dynamic with her best friend. Kimberly had started expressing more irritation than usual, saying things like, she always tries to one-up me, or she only shows up when it benefits her. One night, she was storming across our living room, nearly yelling over an argument about a bridesmaid dress. I listened patiently. I didn't insert myself. But after the fourth or fifth emotional outburst, I gently offered, if this friendship is causing you so much stress, maybe it's worth reconsidering. She stopped briefly, just long enough for me to notice a flicker of something behind her eyes. Then she dismissed it, changed the topic, and told me I was overanalyzing. I didn't bring it up again, but that moment stayed with me. Despite the friction, she kept her close. They were still in constant contact. It didn't make sense, but I rationalized it. I told myself that friendships can be complicated, especially between women. That clashes happen, and sometimes they're brushed off without lasting damage. About a month before the wedding, when nearly everything had been finalized, I was blindsided. It was an ordinary weekday. I came home from work, dropped my keys in the bowl near the door, loosened my tie, and was struck by the silence. Kimberly wasn't home yet. That didn't concern me, not at first. A few minutes later, I got a text. "Hey babe, phone's about to die. Just catching up with some friends. Might be back a bit late." It seemed thoughtful. I appreciated the message and didn't think twice. I reheated some leftovers, sat down with dinner, and assumed she'd be home before long. An hour passed, and I remembered a small change I wanted to make to the seating chart. Figuring she might be with her best friend, I gave her a call. The friend picked up, but something in her voice felt off. There was hesitation, like she didn't know if she should be speaking to me. Calmly, I asked, "Is Kimberly still with you?" There was a pause, too long. Then softly she said, "She left a while ago with her ex." I blinked. "Her what?" "She left with her ex," she repeated, more firmly this time. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but you deserve to know. She's not over him." My thoughts scattered. I couldn't even process it at first. She explained that Kimberly had kept in touch with him. They'd meet up occasionally. She'd tried to keep it quiet, but the emotional bond had never really faded. I asked why she was telling me now. Her answer stopped me cold. "Because you're a decent guy, and you need to know. I'm done pretending I don't see what's going on." She said she had proof, a video she'd taken during one of their meetups. Without thinking, I told her to send it. Minutes later, it hit my phone. A short, unsteady clip. Blurry but unmistakable. There was Kimberly laughing with a man I recognized immediately. Her ex, the one she'd once pointed out in an old photo. I stared at the screen, unable to move. The call had been brief, but its impact was massive. And then she told me something else. Kimberly had actually asked her to come along that night just in case I called. She was there to cover for her, to lie. That part hit hardest. This wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. Part of me wanted to believe the friend was acting out of guilt or conscience, but Kimberly had always painted her differently. "She's jealous. She can't stand when I'm happy. She never liked you." So I questioned the motive. Was this truth or sabotage? But it didn't matter. The video erased all doubt. I didn't need an explanation. Kimberly hadn't let go of him, not enough to stay faithful. So I sat there in the quiet, phone in hand, knowing she'd eventually walk through that door. And when she did, I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't throw accusations. I would look her in the eye and leave no room for more lies. The minutes dragged until finally, at 11:07 p.m., she walked in, wearing that bright, polished smile she always used to smooth things over. But I wasn't interested in make-believe anymore. I asked her to sit down, kept my voice calm. "Where were you?" She didn't even blink. "Just out with some friends." "Wedding stuff." Her tone was easy, too smooth. I nodded, then asked, "Who exactly were you with?" That's when I saw it, a subtle flicker in her eyes. She deflected with a question. "Why are you asking me that?" She never gave a direct answer, just tried to steer the conversation. She folded her arms, accused me of being paranoid. Still, I stayed composed. "Was your ex part of the planning committee tonight?" I asked. Her expression changed instantly. The confusion vanished. Panic took its place. She raised her voice, demanded to know what I was implying. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out my phone and played the video. I watched her face as she watched herself on screen. Saw him. Saw the truth laid bare. She didn't speak. She didn't deny it. I asked how long it had been going on. Why, this close to the wedding, she had gone to see him. She didn't explain. She broke down crying, blaming her friend. Said she had always been envious. That she'd wanted to sabotage us from the beginning. But not once did she deny what the video showed. Not once did she say, "It's not what it looks like." She never even tried. And that told me everything I needed to know. Once the shouting stopped, the silence felt heavy. She was still sobbing when I told her it was over. The wedding was off. She had to leave or I'd call the police. She collapsed to the floor begging me to understand. Said it meant nothing. Said she needed closure. Said she chose me. That she loved me. But none of it moved me. If you truly love someone, I told her, you don't meet up with your ex in secret, then come home pretending everything's fine. I asked her, if the roles were reversed, if I had done this, would you still be here trying to forgive me? She didn't answer, only more tears. Right before she left, she muttered that it was all her friend's fault, that she'd never forgive her. I actually laughed. That was her takeaway? The betrayal didn't matter, just that someone exposed it? I looked her in the eye and said, this wasn't your friend's doing. This was you, your choices, your lies. She lingered for a moment, maybe thinking I'd cave. When I didn't, she packed up and walked out. The next morning, I spent hours on the phone canceling everything: venue, florist, photographer, guests. Each call felt like a small wound. Not because I doubted my decision, but because I realized how close I came to spending my life with someone who couldn't even offer honesty. When I told my parents, they were stunned. My mom asked if I was okay. I told her I would be. Not immediately, but eventually. Later that day, Kimberly's best friend called again. Claimed she was worried about me. I barely responded. Just said one thing. Don't contact me again. You and Kimberly are cut from the same cloth. I want nothing to do with either of you. Then I blocked her number. I wasn't interested in apologies from someone who waited until the brink to speak up. Whatever guilt she carried, it was hers to bear. As I sat with the weight of it all, I couldn't shake how surreal it felt. Kimberly had someone who loved her, someone ready to build a future. Yet she clung to the past as if it held something more valuable. Was it longing, excitement, closure? I'll never know. And I no longer care to. The longer I reflected on it, the more undeniable it became. I didn't need any more evidence. Her behavior revealed everything I needed to know. There was no uncertainty in her actions. It was driven entirely by self-interest. The entire ordeal was a storm of confusion, and I count myself lucky for stepping away before ever binding myself through marriage. Naturally, it hurt. There's no escaping that truth. But beyond the ache came an unexpected steadiness. It was as though I had veered away from a devastating crash at the very last moment. I often find myself wondering how things would have unfolded if I had never seen through the facade. A marriage steeped in dishonesty, hidden rendezvous, and secret connections with someone from her past. That's a future I refuse to step into. Yes, I sacrificed time, resources, and faith along the way, but I didn't lose the essence of who I am. And that is something I'll never permit anyone to strip away from me. This story closes here. I'd truly value hearing your reflections in the comments. Thank you, wholeheartedly, for giving me your attention. If this experience struck a chord with you, I encourage you to look into the other videos on this channel. Until we meet again, take good care.